So, let's talk about marriage. You know, that thing where two people decide they love each other so much, they want to get the government involved. It's a beautiful, sometimes baffling institution. But here's a question for you. When you picture marriage, what do you see? Is it two people, 1 + 1, end of story? Or is there more? Because when you look around the world, the math isn't always that simple. Today we're diving deep into how the world's major religions view monogamy and polygamy. It's a topic that's part sacred text, part soap opera, and all completely fascinating. We're going to travel the globe, from the Vatican to Varanasi, from Jerusalem to Jakarta, to see what the holy books actually say about having one spouse versus having a collection. And it's not just about ancient history and dusty scrolls. These beliefs have a massive impact on people's lives right now, today. They shape families, communities, and even national laws. So we'll also be looking at how these religious views stack up against modern legal systems. It's a classic showdown, God's law versus man's law. Who wins? Well, it's complicated. Get ready, because this is a journey through faith, culture, and some very, very crowded households. We'll explore why some traditions see marriage as a strict one-on-one contract, while others have, let's say, more flexible terms and conditions. We're going to ask the big questions, look at the surprising answers, and maybe, just maybe, figure out why the idea of I do can mean so many different things to so many different people. Stick around. You don't want to miss this. Alright, let's start with Christianity, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Now, if you ask most Christians about marriage, the answer is pretty clear-cut. One man, one woman, for life. It's like the VIP section, very exclusive, no +1s beyond your one. This idea is deeply rooted in the New Testament. Think about it. The story of Adam and Eve wasn't Adam and Eve and Susan and Brenda. No, it was just the two of them, the original power couple. The Bible often uses the metaphor of Christ and the church as a marriage, and that's a singular, devoted relationship. There's no mention of Christ having a few side churches. So for Christians, monogamy isn't just a suggestion. It's the divine blueprint for the family unit, the gold standard of commitment. This principle is hammered home in passages where church leaders are instructed to be the husband of one wife. It sets a powerful precedent. If the people leading the flock are held to this standard, it's understood that everyone else should follow suit. Over centuries, influential theologians like Augustine and Thomas Aquinas built on this foundation, arguing that monogamy was essential for raising children, maintaining social order, and reflecting God's faithful nature. It became less of a rule and more of a core part of the theological DNA. The whole system is built around this idea of an unbreakable, exclusive bond. It's the ultimate till death do us part contract, with no fine print allowing for additional signatories. So when it comes to polygamy, the door is firmly shut, locked, and bolted. It's not just frowned upon. In virtually every Christian denomination, it's explicitly forbidden. You can't just show up to Sunday service with wives 2.0 and 3.0 and expect a warm welcome. This strict stance has shaped the legal systems of entire continents. The reason monogamy is the law of the land in Europe, the Americas, and much of Africa is largely due to Christian influence. It's a clear case where religious doctrine didn't just stay in the church. It walked right out the door and into the halls of government, writing the laws for everyone. Now, let's switch gears and fly over to the Islamic world, where the conversation around marriage gets a bit more numerically flexible. In Islam, the rulebook is different. The Quran explicitly permits a man to marry up to 4 wives. Yes, you heard that right, 4. But, and this is a very, very big but like the king of all buts, it comes with a massive condition. The verse says you can marry 2 or 3 or 4, but only if you can treat them all with perfect justice and equality. And the verse itself follows up by saying, but if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only 1. It's like a divine warning label. Proceed with caution, extreme fairness required. This isn't a free-for-all. The requirement for absolute equality is no joke. We're talking equal time, equal resources, equal affection. A task so difficult that many Islamic scholars and the Quran itself suggest it's nearly impossible for a mere mortal to achieve. It's like trying to perfectly slice a pizza for 4 people who all have rulers and are ready to fight over a millimeter of pepperoni. Historically, the practice was often tied to specific social circumstances, like providing for widows and orphans after a war. It was seen as a community support system, not just a way for a guy to expand his family roster. And to be crystal clear, this permission is only for men. Polyandry, where a woman has multiple husbands, is completely prohibited. So how does this play out today? It's a total patchwork. In some Muslim-majority countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, polygyny is legal and practiced. But in others, like Turkey and Tunisia, it's been completely banned by the state, reflecting a move towards secular Western-style laws. And then you have countries like Malaysia and Egypt, which are somewhere in the middle. They permit it, but with heavy legal restrictions, often requiring a man to get permission from his first wife, or prove to a court that he has the financial means to support another family. It's a fascinating tug-of-war between religious text, cultural tradition, and modern legal reform. Next up, we land in the vibrant, colorful world of Hinduism, a tradition that's ancient, complex, and has more gods than a Marvel movie. When it comes to marriage, the history here is a real journey. If you look back at ancient Hindu scriptures, like the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, you'll find that polygamy was definitely a thing, especially for the upper crust. Kings, rulers, and wealthy men often had multiple wives. It was a status symbol, a way to forge political alliances, and to ensure they had a male heir to continue the family line. Think of it as the original go big or go home approach to dynasty building. These stories are filled with epic tales of co-wives, palace intrigue, and drama. But even in those ancient times, monogamy was held up as the ideal, the righteous path for the common person. The divine couple, Rama and Sita, are the ultimate embodiment of this ideal. Their story is one of singular devotion, loyalty, and partnership through thick and thin. They are the role model for the perfect marriage, and their relationship is celebrated as the pinnacle of marital dharma, or duty. So, while the kings were living it up with multiple queens, the spiritual ideal promoted for everyone else was one of steadfast, monogamous love. It created a kind of dual system. Polygamy was tolerated for the powerful, but monogamy was praised as the more spiritually pure path for the masses. Fast forward to today, and the landscape has completely changed. The age of royal polygamy is long gone. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, a landmark piece of legislation in modern India, officially outlawed polygamy for Hindus. This was a huge shift, bringing the legal framework in line with the long-held cultural ideal of monogamy. So if you're a Hindu in India today, one spouse is your legal limit. Period. The law is strict, and trying to have a second wife while your first marriage is still valid is a criminal offense. It shows how modern national laws can step in and standardize a practice, even in a religion with a diverse and ancient history. Now, let's take a deep, calming breath and enter the world of Buddhism. If you're looking for a religion with a big, thick rulebook on marriage, you've come to the wrong place. Buddhism is famously less concerned with divine laws and more focused on personal conduct and ending suffering. The Buddha himself wasn't a marriage counselor. His main goal was to teach the path to enlightenment. As a result, there are no strict commandments saying thou shalt have this many spouses. Marriage is generally seen as a personal, secular affair, not a sacrament or a divine contract. The key principle is the same one that applies to everything else in Buddhism. Don't cause harm to yourself or others. Because of this flexible, non-dogmatic approach, the default practice in most Buddhist cultures has simply been monogamy. It's not because of a specific religious edict, but because it's generally seen as the most straightforward way to build a stable, harmonious family life without a lot of extra drama, jealousy, and suffering, all the things Buddhists try to avoid. A committed, monogamous relationship is viewed as a good foundation for lay practitioners to support each other on their spiritual paths. The focus is on compassion, mindfulness, and kindness within the relationship, whatever its form. The how many is less important than the how. That said, because there's no strict prohibition, polygamy isn't technically a sin in Buddhism. In some parts of the world, particularly in certain regions of Southeast Asia like Thailand or Myanmar, polygamy has existed historically, more as a cultural or social practice than a religious one, often among the wealthy and powerful. However, it's become increasingly rare. Most modern Buddhist majority countries have civil laws that enforce monogamy, and the cultural norm is overwhelmingly one-on-one. So, for Buddhists, the path to marital bliss is less about following a rigid rule, and more about choosing the structure that leads to the least amount of suffering and the most harmony. And for most, that path is monogamy. Okay, let's travel back to the roots of the Abrahamic faiths, with Judaism. If you open the Torah, the foundational text, you'll see that many of the biblical patriarchs were not exactly playing for team monogamy. Abraham had Sarah and Hagar. Jacob, the guy who wrestled an angel, famously had 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, and 2 concubines on top of that, King David and King Solomon. Their lists of wives and concubines were legendary. For Solomon, it was said he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's not a family, that's a small city. In ancient Israelite society, polygyny was permitted and practiced, particularly to ensure the survival of the family line by producing heirs. But then, things started to change. Even within the biblical text, you can see the drama and heartache that came with these polygamous households. Think of the rivalry between Sarah and Hagar, or Leah and Rachel. It was a recipe for jealousy and conflict. Over time, as Jewish communities spread out and lived under different legal systems, like Roman law, the practice became less common. The social and economic realities made supporting multiple families difficult, and the ideal of a single, loving partnership began to take stronger root within the culture. The seeds of change were sown early on. The real turning point came around the year 1000 CE. A highly influential rabbi named Gershom ben Judah, known as the Light of the Exile, issued a famous decree, or takana, that officially banned polygamy for Ashkenazi Jews, those living in Christian Europe. His reasoning was part practical, to avoid conflict with their Christian neighbors and their laws, and part ethical, to prevent men from taking a second wife against the will of the first. This ban was so significant that it was eventually accepted by almost all Jewish communities around the world. Today, monogamy is the absolute, unquestioned norm across all streams of Judaism, from Orthodox to Reform. It's a powerful example of a religion evolving its own rules over time. Our next stop takes us to Punjab, the heartland of Sikhism, a faith that is relatively young compared to the others we've discussed. And when it comes to marriage, the Sikh view is refreshingly direct and clear. Sikhism is all about equality, equality between men and women, and equality for all people regardless of caste or creed. This core principle extends directly to marriage. The Sikh gurus strongly advocated for a partnership built on mutual respect, love, and spiritual companionship. The goal of marriage, called Anand Karaj or blissful union, is for 2 souls to merge into one, supporting each other on their journey towards God. In this framework, there is absolutely no room for polygamy. The concept of 1 soul in 2 bodies is central to the Sikh understanding of marriage. How can 1 soul merge with 3 or 4 other bodies? The math just doesn't work. The gurus condemned the practice of having multiple wives, seeing it as a source of inequality and social injustice that degraded women. Guru Amar Das, the 3rd guru, was a particularly strong champion for women's rights, speaking out against practices that harmed them. For Sikhs, a marriage is a sacred commitment between 2 equals, a single partnership for life. This isn't just a theological ideal, it's the universal practice. You will not find polygamy in any Sikh community anywhere in the world. It is completely and unequivocally rejected. The commitment to monogamy is absolute and deeply ingrained in the culture and religious practice. The Anand Karaj ceremony itself reinforces this, with the bride and groom circling the Guru Granth Sahib, the Holy Scripture, 4 times, each circle representing a vow to live a life of shared spiritual purpose. It's a beautiful, powerful symbol of 2 people joining as one, and only one, unit. In the world of religious views on marriage, the Sikh stance is one of the most straightforward and consistent. For our final chapter, we step away from the major organized religions and into the incredibly diverse world of tribal and indigenous faiths. This isn't one single belief system. It's thousands of unique cultures, each with its own traditions, scattered across Africa, the Americas, Oceania, and Asia. And as you can imagine, their views on marriage are as varied as they are. In many of these societies, marriage is less about a sacred text and more about kinship, community survival, and social structure. It's the glue that holds the clan or tribe together. And in many of these cultures, polygyny has historically been an accepted and sometimes preferred form of marriage. Why polygyny? The reasons are often very practical. In agricultural or pastoral societies, having more wives meant having more hands to work the land and care for the household. It was a way to build wealth and increase the family's labor force. It was also a way to create strong alliances between different families or clans, weaving a tighter social fabric. For a leader or chief, having many wives was a sign of his status, power, and ability to provide for a large household. In these contexts, polygyny wasn't seen as immoral. It was a functional, integrated part of the social and economic system that helped the community thrive. However, the modern world has brought immense change. The influence of colonialism brought with it Christian missionaries and European legal systems, both of which strongly pushed for monogamy. Today, the national laws of most countries where indigenous groups live legally recognize only monogamous marriages. This has created a complex situation where traditional cultural practices clash with modern state laws. While polygamous unions might still be formed and recognized within a specific community, they often have no legal standing with the national government. It's a story of ancient traditions adapting and sometimes disappearing under the immense pressure of globalization and modern legislation. So, after that whirlwind tour around the world, what have we learned? It's clear that when it comes to love, marriage, and how many people you can share your Netflix password with, religion has had a massive say. From the strict one-on-one rule in Christianity and Sikhism to the conditional allowance for four in Islam, faith has provided the blueprint for family life for billions of people. We've seen how these ancient texts and traditions have shaped everything from royal succession to the very definition of partnership. These aren't just old stories. They are living traditions that continue to guide, inspire, and sometimes complicate the lives of people today. But the story doesn't end there. As we've seen time and time again, the modern world has its own powerful ideas. Most modern legal systems now enforce monogamy, creating a fascinating tension with some of these older religious and cultural practices. The law of the land often overrides the law of the faith, forcing ancient traditions to adapt or go underground. The world is a messy, beautiful, complicated place where a person's identity is shaped by their faith, their culture, and the passport they hold. Ultimately, the global conversation about marriage shows us that there's no single one-size-fits-all answer. Cultural and religious traditions still deeply shape marriage practices around the world, even when they bump up against the law. It proves that while governments can regulate who you can legally marry, they can't always regulate what's in people's hearts and souls. The relationship between love, law, and faith is always evolving, and it's a story that's far from over.